Sorry ahead of time for any format issues. I'm posting this from my cell phone. So for context, I'm a 22-year-old male, and I live in a large city in the Midwest. Now, I drive for Lyft while putting myself through trade school. I drive for other similar companies, but that's a bit beside the point. I have many horror stories from those as well, but I'll tell those another time. This time it was Christmas Eve of 2020. I was out running Lyft for a few hours before heading to my mom's with my new baby and wife. Nothing particularly special going on for the night, just the usual. I get a ride request. It was a pickup from this kinda lower income apartment complex. No big deal though. I arrive and I find my passenger. He has all his belongings with him, several boxes worth of stuff. My car is a 2006 Chevy Impala, so it's not too big. We get all of his stuff loaded up just barely and are on our way. During the ride he's crying, yelling about how his girlfriend was cheating on him and he had walked in on them earlier that night. He couldn't stay there because it was her name on the lease, so I was taking him to a hotel. Now, in my city we have a street that's well known for having vices. Hookers, drugs, gangs, weapons, and shady motels. The whole works. We get to the motel and he asked me to wait for him to check in and get his key. No problem, man, I say. I'll confess, I break the rules a little bit when it comes to Lyft. I have a gun hidden in a concealed holster, secured to the underside of my driver's seat for protection. Reason being, driving Lyft and other contract apps, I've had knives and guns pulled on me, as well as people having tried to fight me, rob me, and all other kinds of things. But like I said, for another time. This motel was on that street I mentioned before. Homeless people were everywhere, and there was a dude on the far corner of the complex that still had a needle in his arm, passed out against the building. I'm a big fan of true crime and horror narration, so I was pretty on edge. He gets his key. The whole motel is ground level, so to help the guy out, I drive to his door. As I mentioned before, he had quite a lot of stuff with him. So I started to help him unload all this crap. While on my second trip getting these things, I saw a guy come out of a room just to the south of my car, followed by two ladies. They came up to the room I was next to, not my passenger. One of the ladies pounded on the door, then opened it. That's when I saw the man raise a fucking shotgun up out of his long coat and storm into the room. The two ladies followed him, slamming the door shut behind them. Following this, I heard quite a lot of yelling and shouting, and I was just waiting for shots to ring out. Out of nowhere, my passenger walks up from behind me. I can take the rest of this, man. Go ahead and take off. Have a Merry Christmas. He gave me a cash tip as well. I didn't even notice as he took the boxes out of my hands, or slid a $5 bill into my pocket. I was frozen. I knew what may have been going down in that room. I had to leave, or at least get out to where I could get my gun. I know the man and both ladies saw me, and I know they knew I saw the gun. I had to get out of there. No witnesses. I got in my car and sped away quickly. I got about a block or so away and called the cops. I gave them every detail. After I got off the phone with the police, I signed out of Lyft. I hadn't made much money that night, but I was done. I got a call later that night. The cops investigated. They never found the gunman or the woman. They never answered the door I saw them come out of. And the occupants of the room they went into, they said nothing had happened. And I knew that was full of shit. I know what I saw. So, to the gunman I saw with the shotgun, who I'm sure was willing to make a statement to someone about a debt, let's not meet again. I'm a security guard for an alarm response company. We answer alarms for businesses and private residences. 99% of the time, it's a motion detector set off by a cat, or a restaurant forgot to disarm their stuff before the stock truck arrived to unload. In this particular case, I was called out to a house where the back door alarm was set off, like it thought someone had opened it. The owner was out of town, but she was alerted by her app and had her mother meet me there. We checked the door. It's locked. We figured maybe someone tried the door, but it didn't budge, setting off the alarm. But we find that there's a light on inside. The mom mentioned this to the daughter on the phone. The daughter says she isn't sure if she left the light on or not. It's a good idea to make people think someone's home, but she just couldn't remember. That gave me a bad little tingle, though. The mother wanted to go inside to check. However, she didn't have a spare key. The neighbor did, but they were asleep and the mom didn't want to wake them. So I fill out my papers and go back to my normal patrol routes. An hour later, the same home sends an alert out once again. I'm the only one in my city zone, so I arrive to answer it once more. When I pull up, though, the police and CSI are there talking to the mother and the now awake neighbor. They're reviewing video footage sent to them by the daughter. I look at it. 4 armed men wearing masks and hoodies stormed out of the bathroom just a minute after the mother and I had left. They then proceeded to rob the place thoroughly. They had broken in and locked the door behind them for appearance's sake. They were also the ones who had turned on the lights. The mother had told me 3 men had robbed her daughter's home just a month before. Somehow they knew when this girl would be out of town. They appeared smart, desiring a quiet robbery without conflict, but they also brought guns, so they were prepared to shoot their way out of trouble if need be. The mother had wanted to go in. If she'd had a key or woken the neighbor for it, we would have likely been shot dead by those men when we went inside. Work doesn't tend to give me Kevlar vests or anything. If I ever get another house call and someone is there, I'm not going inside no matter what is asked of me. I count myself fortunate the way I was blocked this time, because I was prepared to foolishly go in and check if I could. The 1% of calls I get where something is actually off, it's never again been as bad as this one. I'll begin by giving a little bit of background. At the time this happened, I was a 16-year-old female, working at a chain coffee place while in high school. I'm in college now and I'm 19, 7 hours away from said place. This happened at a time in my life in which I was super shy and had a tough time standing up for myself. In retrospect, I acknowledge I could have handled it a lot better. I used to work closing shifts with my best friend after school. It'd be from 3 to 10 p.m. or 5 to 10 p.m. We worked at a relatively dead store, so we'd spend most of our time playing music and talking. We did our duties, like taking the trash out and restocking, although both of us always dreaded taking the trash out, as we had to go out back. The dumpsters were behind the store, in an extremely dimly lit area right next to a sketchy liquor store. One night, a man came in. It wasn't unusual to have customers come near closing. It was just uncommon to see anyone we didn't already know. Our store was mostly just regulars. He was lanky and probably around 30 years old. I mostly just remember his eyes. They were piercing, the type that never break a stare. I remember initially thinking he was quite attractive actually. Yikes. The way he spoke was short and concise. Just ordering a small hot latte. I made his order and that was it. I told my friend about how I thought he was attractive, and we then started referring to him as the small hot latte guy. We always call people by their drink orders. Well, he started to come in a bunch of times after that, each time staying a little longer and longer, talking just a bit more and more. One day he came with a woman, presumably his girlfriend. I remember I felt a little weird, like she was staring at me or like they had spoken about me beforehand. She glanced over to him and said, "Wow, she is pretty." I didn't think much of it, said thank you, served them, and thought that would be the end of it. He then began showing up and talking about me a lot with her. He started off being friendly. I honestly don't even know what we'd talk about. I think music or something. Then he started to get kind of flirty. Initially, I was just flattered, but being underage and immature, I didn't even think about the fact that this could be alarming. He began to stay for a while. Sometimes he would bring a laptop or a notebook with him. I could feel him staring at me and listening to our conversations at all hours, but at that point I wasn't getting creep vibes from him. My coworker and I had dealt with our fair share of them. Then somehow he got my number. To this day, I honestly have no idea how. He texted me, and somehow I still wasn't quite creeped out. We would talk about music a lot. Then I began to learn a bit more about him. He was in his late 30s and had prior problems with substance abuse that he never really got into. He went back to school for art and would start showing me his pieces. He'd also send a lot of pictures of nature. I thought they were nice. Looking back, they were actually pretty creepy. For example, a picture of his backyard sent at like 3 a.m. He'd stay and work on his art as well. He then told me he barely enjoyed hot lattes. He just always came to see me. He would come in and began giving me gifts as well. This was the point I finally started realizing that I did not like where the situation was heading. He began by just giving little snacks or drinks. I would accept but never eat or drink them. It wasn't that I necessarily thought he had ill intentions. I just had a hard time accepting gifts from other people. I remember one night he brought me a book about one of his favorite artists. I reluctantly took it, having tried to decline before. I remember telling him about one of my favorite musicians and sent him a link of a performance I really liked. He started being kind of sexual, still talking about the song. He began talking super suggestively, and I would laugh it off and decline when he asked to send pictures. I began talking less and less and told my friend about the situation. She agreed it was getting creepy and said perhaps I should change my schedule. I told her, though, that I'd be fine. He'd still come every week at closing time, and even stay in his car till after, meaning he'd watch me go to the back to take the trash out. I began making excuses as to why I couldn't talk, and began going to the back of the store when I'd see him. He then sent me a bunch of texts about how graceful I looked while working. I didn't respond. He kept texting me, and I told him eventually I didn't want to talk anymore. He sent a bunch of messages describing how much I meant to him and how he would never be okay again. I started freaking out. I blocked his number. Still, though, I returned to work. Honestly, I thought he'd stop coming. Of course, I was wrong. I felt uneasy the whole shift. My friend said that if he came to just go to the back and wait it out. Immediately after that, I saw his car coming, and my heart sank. I was on the verge of tears and hurried to the back. I could hear them talking but couldn't decipher what exactly was being said. About 10 minutes later, she came to the back. I could see that she was visibly upset. We ended up both just crying and hugging each other. Not the first time we've done that. She told me he kept asking to see me, asking how I was. She just kept refusing. She told him how I was underage and how he made me feel uncomfortable, but he just wouldn't give up. Eventually, she threatened him and he left. We were both shaken up, but I thought at that point it was over. It was about time to take out the trash and lock up, and we both felt okay after relaxing for a while. I was opening the door while juggling like 3 bags of trash when I noticed something on the ground. I was confused at first, but then I realized what I saw. It was flowers with a note. I felt sick to my stomach and gazed around the parking lot. I didn't see his car. I threw them out immediately and told my friend I didn't want to read the note. She read it and told me I had to. It was something to the effect of, "I've never felt so connected to someone. You're breaking my heart. Please don't do this. I'm sorry." Looking back, honestly, I didn't lead him on, but initially I felt as if I was the one in the wrong. Nonetheless, we turned the corner to take the trash out and both prayed the parking lot was empty. It wasn't. Let's just say the trash was not going to get taken out that night. I continued working there, and still worked there on my breaks from college. I had different hours after that. In the summer, I was going to leave for my freshman year. I saw him once again. It was around 3 p.m. He was busy, we made eye contact, and he left. That was the last time I ever saw him. Looking back, I was too naive, and I could have handled the situation so much better. I am forever thankful for my friend. So, when I was 15, my mom was friends with a man who wanted to date her, Jake. My mom was not interested in a relationship with this man at all, and in fact was dating another man named Colt. My family is full of pretty serious rednecks, and my mom is no exception. So one day, my mom invited Colt and his roommate Frank over to shoot some guns at our home range. We shot for a while and eventually went in around dark. My mom and Colt got drunk after we went inside. Frank couldn't drive due to some brain damage, so they ended up staying the night at the house. Around 2 a.m., I was still up late playing video games. My mom and Colt were in her room asleep when Frankie comes running down the hallway, saying a truck just pulled into the driveway. I look out the window and see it's Jake. Apparently, my mom hadn't texted him in a few hours, and he's extremely possessive, so he drove by to check and see if she was home. Keep in mind, Colt's Ranger was parked in the driveway, and it was very obviously a man's truck. Think spiked lug nuts, spur hanging from the rear view, skull hydro dipped dash. Jake absolutely flips. He starts ringing the doorbell non-stop, beating on the door, walking around the house and beating on windows, screaming my mom's name, and circling Colt's truck. At this point, my mom and Colt are wide awake, and since we have blackout curtains, she tells us to keep the lights off and hide in the hallway. If we don't do anything or respond, he might think no one's home and just leave. Colt, being completely sober now, is understandably pissed, threatening to go out and deal with it. It's now important to point out the size difference between Colt and Jake. Colt is 5'5" and 125 pounds. Jake is 6'3" and 240. He could punt Colt 50 feet if he wanted to, and because of this, my mom forces him to stay inside. This whole fiasco went on for 45 minutes. At one point, we see the camera monitor in my mom's room that Jake has punched the side of Colt's truck. We then hear the screen to one of the windows slide up. The window in question is locked, and Jake couldn't fit through, thank God. It's at this point that I think of the only thing that will make Jake leave. I grab a gun and walk to the living room and ask, "Who the hell is it?" out the window. Jake realizes it's me and asks where my mom is. I tell him she's out with her friends and that I haven't heard from her, and I'll call him when she gets home if I'm awake. He said thank you and left. After all the shit he did, that's all it took for him to leave in the end. I was amazed. I honestly thought I was going to have to shoot him. Later on that night, around 4, we hear his truck outside once again. He squeals his tires down the road, obviously pissed that Mom still hadn't called him. The next morning, he's back again at 10, beating on the doors and windows, screaming and trying to get a reaction. Colt again tries to go out and handle it, but Mom won't let him. He finally leaves once more, and Colt goes out to look at his truck. There's a 3-inch deep dent in the side of his bed. Colt was understandably pissed, and tells my mom to let him know if that fucking creep comes back. Jake had beat our doors until his hand bled, and had blood on the doors and windows. My mom wouldn't let me call the police because she felt that it would just cause unnecessary strain, and she thought it was all over, so the cops were unfortunately never involved. She was also worried he'd do worse if she did call them. My mom stopped talking to Jake after that, but I never felt comfortable in that house at night again. Once I started driving, I didn't stay the night there very much, opting to just visit during the day and go back to my dad's at night. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here as always. I got an unfortunate announcement for you guys tonight. You might have noticed that a lot of my videos have been deleted or put onto the unlisted category. That's because I just recently got 2 copyright strikes all at once, so if I get one more, my channel will be deleted, so I can't really do much about that except for remove everything, I guess. Just hope that somebody just doesn't decide to strike me and delete my entire channel. So from now on, I might be posting a little less often, or at least not posting Reddit stories or the Let's Not Meet as often. If I can get permission for the stories and make sure they're not gonna go crazy on me, then yeah, sure, I'll do some videos, but other than that, I don't really want to risk it right now. I can't until April or all my stuff will get deleted. If you guys want to help me out for a couple of months and send in your stories, it doesn't really matter how long they are, as long as they're, grammatically correct and everything and are easy to read. I'll go ahead and read those, and we'll try to make it by on that if you guys are up for it. If you guys decide to send in a story for me, please be sure to include in the tagline how you would like the story to be named, how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in, and the category of the story if it has one. Links to all my social media will be in the description below, including my Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail accounts. I also have a link to my second channel, which I will put in there, that I just made, just in case this one gets destroyed. You guys can go subscribe there, and we'll do some stuff like web novel readings, and maybe continue the scary story stuff if this one does get deleted. Other than that, please be sure to let me know in the comments what you guys think. Please be sure to leave any feedback, like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. Those really help me out. They promote me on the YouTube algorithm, especially since I've had to delete so many videos. Please be sure you click that bell as well, because I could really use all the support I can get right now. If you guys are curious about the music or the art used in the video, that's listed in the description as always. And I hope you guys have a good day. That's all for now, I think.